There's a lot of things I like about this low G, but there's a lot of things I also like about the high G as well. It just kind of gives it that classic ukulele sound. The low G gives a much different sound, a much fuller sound actually. And the strings become arranged in a way where it is lowest to highest in terms of tone, which is excellent for playing scales. The reason it's so good for scales is that now I can start to think more vertically instead of horizontally. So what I mean by that, if I take a ukulele that has that classic high G sound and I just play top to bottom, you'll notice it's not stacked from low to high. In fact, it's kind of all over the place. The C string becomes our lowest note and ascends upwards towards the A string, which becomes our highest note. So it's stacked there, but not at the G string. And because it's the second highest note from A, it tends to make scales a little awkward to play. In fact, I would just start on the C to make it sound more like a scale. So I'm just gonna play the G scale with the low G, and then I'm gonna do that exactly the same again on the high G ukulele. So as you can hear from that, the low G seems to make much more sense in terms of playing scales. It seems with the high G, you would just skip that high G and just go straight to the C string, and that's where you would begin your scale. If you wanted to start on G, it would make most sense to start on the 3rd fret of the E string, which is the same note as the high G, and you would go up from there. Now you'll notice when I did that, it became very horizontal in terms of left to right, instead of up and down, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just doesn't feel like efficient use of the fretboard. With the low G, I'm able to get tones I normally would not be able to get. But don't get me wrong, I really do like the high G. It really gives that classic ukulele sound. But I also really love the low G. In fact, half of my ukuleles I own have the low G on, and the other half has the high G on. I can't make up my mind. It's so hard to go with just one or the other. They both have really unique qualities about them that I really like, and I think it just depends on the situation. And again, the high G is what I feel makes the ukulele with the nylon strings. It really gives it that sort of heavenly feel, low fidelity sound to it, which is really quite lovely. I like to use the high G either alone or quietly with a few other instruments, but that's it. But when it comes to the low G, I like to pair this with my resonator ukulele and also my electric ukulele. That's gonna it just goes hand in hand with it. When you have that low G on, it feels like a much more high energy instrument all of a sudden because it's giving you a much fuller sound. And I really like to use this when getting into bigger jams and more intense songs. It works really wonderfully with that. This of course pairs wonderfully with tenor sized ukuleles, giving you that extra energy and power to it. Let me point out the strings I'm using here. These are the Aquila Red series strings. That means they are nylon strings, and they're mixed with metallic copper powder, giving them a little bit more strength to them, a little bit more brightness, metallic sound, which pairs wonderfully with the resonator ukulele. I'll link a bunch of low Gs that you can check out that I recommend down in the description. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that this string is very different from all the other strings, and you might even go as far to say that this is a metal string, and it is, but it's also not. This string is wound, meaning it's a nylon string with a thin steel coil wrapped all the way around it, all the way to the bottom. Now, why is this the case? Basically, in order to have that low of a string on this sized instrument with this amount of tension, you can either have a longer string or a wider string, which is exactly what is happening here. The diameter is increased by having that coil wrapped around. When you increase its diameter, you lower the tone. So really, in the end, it comes down to preference. If you want a fuller sound, trying to get more away from that ukulele sound, and you also want to explore scales, the low G is just such a wonderful option. But if you really, really want that classic ukulele sound, and maybe you're more into chords and other fun things that you can do with the high G, then the high G is really the way to go. I mean, I just like to have two different ukuleles on hand so I can switch back and forth because I can never decide on one. But either way, I think it's worth checking it out for yourself. You can pick up a low G string for like $5 or $8. They're not that bad. Just put it on, see if you like it. If not, take it off and continue on your day. I'll of course link a bunch of strings that I've used in the past that I think work really well down in the description. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or maybe liking the video. That would mean so much. Okay, bye.